If you guys have been following me for any amount of time, you know how important 11/11 experiences have been in my development, and it's not just me. This is a pretty ubiquitous experience. There are tons of people that have had this experience, and it's one of the most, I guess, like universally experienced sort of parapsychological phenomena. And it's the kind of thing that a lot of people would dismiss by saying that it's just for example, I can't remember the word for this, but there's actually it's a condition where you see numbers and you think that they have significance. It would also fall under the category of like schizophrenia in certain circumstances to believe that there's significance in something that's actually just a complete coincidence. And another element of that is that I think subconsciously, probably, you always know what time it is. You how long have you been alive? And your subconscious has been tracking all this. So looking at a clock and seeing 11:11 when you have a certain thought is almost meaningless, really, because for a lot of reasons. No matter how often it happens, that sort of thing. People say all the time, I see my angel numbers everywhere, and it's like, well, you're looking for them, your subconscious knows what time it is, I just don't, that's not enough. But this sort of thing goes way beyond that, and one of the metrics for, validity, I guess, in the scientific method is consistency, right? And so when it comes to this sort of 11/11 phenomena, it is pretty consistent. And it's also demonstrable. There's a number of occasions where I have been able to sort of elicit this stuff through provocation for other people. And one of the best examples of that I have is actually recorded in a video called The Phoenix Process. And you could accuse me, I guess, of editing it, but I didn't know how to edit videos. I didn't even do the editing then, so you would have to actually accuse me of orchestrating a conspiracy to engineer this moment in a video that very few people even saw. So, and on top of that, it was videoed in 4 different places over several weeks, and you can tell that because sometimes I'm in the Andes, sometimes I'm in the jungle, sometimes I'm in the beach. But what happened is that I was talking about how if you just thinking about this sort of stuff, getting your head into this space, can provoke the experience of synchronicity. And as I was saying that in regards to 11/11, later I was looking through the video because I wanted to put a card to my 11/11 video, and I couldn't find it, and finally I thought, should I just click the 11/11 minute marker? And sure enough, I click the 11/11 minute marker and I hear 11/11. I'm like, no way. It's perfect. It's not like a little bit too soon, a little bit too late, nothing's cut off, it's just 11/11. And I'm literally saying that, talking about or thinking about this stuff can provoke it to happen. And so then it occurs. And I think at the 23 minute marker, which is the number of coincidence, according to Robert Anton Wilson, and 23 skidoo is like this old school saying that was kind of relating to that. So it's a related number again. And I'm talking about a meditation where you freeze the image in your mind, usually a top bar or something. And if it wavers at all, you're supposed to, the highway got loud all of a sudden. You're supposed to start over and track your progress over time because you're trying to develop the capacity to really, really focus the mind. It's kind of the opposite practice of the emptying the mind. In fact, I think that the best meditation practice is to focus the mind when you wake up in the morning with this tapa concentration, and then do the emptying before you go to sleep at night. And if you are pursuing Hermetic ritual magic and doing the lesser vanishing ritual of the pentagram or any of the other traditions that have incorporated that, it goes very well with the neophyte practice of doing the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, invoking in the morning. So focus meditation, invoking, banishing, emptying of the mind, right? So so I'm talking about that, and as soon as I say this meditation involves, focusing your mind so that an image is absolutely frozen, there's a glitch in the editing software and my face freezes. So we were able to capture this sort of thing twice in one video. And yesterday on 11/11, we had a bit of a tragedy in the morning. Our second fruit bat rescue. We were living in this jungle lodge where it sort of rains baby bats sometimes. One day we found like 2 or 3 of them dead in the front yard, and one was alive, and so we tried to nurse it back to health, and it didn't work, and unfortunately the little bat died. And this time we had the bat for a couple of weeks. And so, my partner Enrica had been very dedicated and waking up in the middle of the night every 2 hours for weeks, and somehow the bat died the morning of 11/11. And so if you guys have seen the video that I made when we found the bat, I put the original Batman soundtrack as the music. And so after we said our goodbyes to Lucy the fruit bat, we called a taxi to take us up to Ayape, which is like a surf town where the jungle meets the beach, a few miles up the road. I'm actually headed there to drop our friend and client off for a San Pedro ceremony in a little while. Probably going to be pretty amazing. Overnight ceremony with Sweat Lodge in the morning. So we're heading up to Ayape, and the taxi pulls up and it has a Batman symbol on the hood, which is totally, that's not, I've never seen that before. And it's 11/11, right? And so as we're heading up to Ayape, I'm realizing that video, the Phoenix process, where the 11/11 synchronicity occurs at the 11/11 minute marker, I started recording that video down the very same trail that we were heading for in Ayape 3 years ago on the same day. And so this is all sort of elucidates what I think this phenomena is about. Like, none of this is woo. There's some sort of mechanism or structural component to why these things happen. There's a mechanistic explanation. Everything on the physical plane has some sort of mechanism of operation. And so, it would be a misappropriation and abuse of the word supersymmetry, because this isn't exactly what that's referring to. But it is a sort of supersymmetry where, order is basically an expression of symmetry, right? It's derivative of symmetry. And so the word synchronicity comes from Carl Jung, and what he had realized is that through some sort of then inexplicable mechanism, if you created a bridge of communication between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, these synchronicities would be observed, and it was very, very consistent. And so this is the crux of this phenomenon, because this symmetry exists between the external world and our internal world. And so this idea that people like Terence McKenna and his brother Dennis have presented, that, and Aldous Huxley, I guess, was maybe the originator. He called it a reducing valve in our consciousness. And so the theory was that when you take things like ayahuasca and psilocybin, LSD, whatever psychedelics, they bring down these filters and you're able to perceive a wider spectrum. And that's really mostly in reference to the sort of undulating patterns and the geometric forms in the air. And the idea is that if we were able to perceive all of the sensory input that's actually there in the universe, we wouldn't be able to function, and so we have this filtration system. And I think it stands to reason that it's not just patterns and energies and that sort of thing that's being filtered. In fact, selective perception, which we can sort of subconsciously engage, I almost said to our own ends, but it's like when we're working against ourselves, really, that we do that kind of thing. But these sort of cognitive biases, like selective perception, actually have their roots in instinct, survival instinct. And so I think it's the sort of precedent in our neurobiology for this capacity to sort of filter things out of our reality comes from having a necessity for these filters, right? So when you start to eat away at the boundaries of those filters, you change the parameters of your conscious perception, you will start to perceive things that were previously invisible to you. And so this sort of symmetry that exists between our internal being and our external being is more evident. We're more able to perceive that kind of subtlety. And it's really remarkable to me, the fact that I was walking back out to that field where I recorded that 11:11 video on 11:11. I did not do it deliberately. We just happened to be here again. And we're 18 hours away from where we were living. You know what I mean? And we haven't been here in 3 years. So it's and I think that that's how to understand this, is to realize that this symmetry extends, over years, decades, eons. And so, we will see an interrelated matrix of this symmetry that extends throughout our entire lives. I've called it the invisible thread. I actually wrote a song about it. And it's sort of and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to entirely reduce it to a deterministic phenomenon. It does very strongly imply some kind of communication of some greater order. It's very difficult not to perceive it that way, and especially because in my experience, these synchronicities and coincidences, they sort of lead somewhere. There's conceptual continuity. It doesn't just sort of randomly present like strange coincidences. It's very much telling a tale, and if you are able to remain objective and learn to constrain your wish demons, you often are able to learn a lot that may not be accessible to you through ordinary methodology. And so but that's a skill as well. Most people, and this is a cautionary statement, most people will end up just sort of chasing their tail, so to speak, because they're not able to extricate themselves from the subjective interpretations and the wish demons, and it all becomes basically meaningless, even if it had, as its very substance, some substructure of meaning, or substrata of meaning, I guess. So what else did I have to say about that? So I'll give you guys another example of what is so compelling about this, because one of the arguments that skeptics would present is that the subconscious is tracking time, and it's very likely that you know what time it is all the time. And one of the most common reports about these type of experiences, people say like, oh, I see my angel number 333 all the time when I look at the clock. And it's like, well, so what? You're looking for it, you want to see it, your subconscious mind knows what time it is, so what? I mean, just from like an objective perspective, that's not really that meaningful. It's not very impressive. It's nothing really. But like the description of that occurrence in that Phoenix process video, that's a little bit more difficult to discount. And another thing that can happen that's maybe even a bit more compelling is when these things have physical manifestations that are like impossible to explain. And that happened to me once. If you were a long-time viewer, you probably heard this story before, but I'll give a condensed version, then I have to go because I have to get client to a ceremony, and So here goes, and this is my introduction to the theory of 1111, or the experience, or whatever it is. I did not use the internet until like 2011, really, and 2010 this all occurred, so and I don't think it was a big thing back then. I certainly had never heard of it. And I'm kind of grateful for that, because I didn't have it, like, I had no awareness of it. So to project it, is unlikely in that case. And so I had already started to experience a sort of flood of synchronicities and a lot of precognitions and just very rapid sort of spiritual, metaphysical evolution. And so a lot of very strange things had happened. I was at work one time ripping a awning off of a porch, and my girlfriend called and told me that there were bears that she had just taken pictures of in the tree in the front yard, and I was like, okay, that's cool, and I hung up and I pulled the insulation out of the roof, and 3 bear claws fell on the deck. And I had the phone on speakerphone because I was trying to keep working, and my friend saw it, the whole thing, and I picked him up, and he walked over and he's looking, he's like, no way. And I was like, there gotta be parrot claws. And he goes, no, I just shot a bear last week, those are bear claws. And so, everything has a mechanistic explanation. It's likely that, there were a lot of Ute and Navajo people living there. Somebody probably some kind of ritual blessing or something. And still, though, the timing was unbelievable. So I think it was the next night, we were discussing 11, just the number 11, which, by the way, I don't have time to get into all this at the moment, but the number 11 has, huge layers of symmetry and significance in all sorts of different contexts, from Jewish mysticism to the occult of Aleister Crowley. The invisible Sephiroth on the Tree of Life is Da'at, which is number 11, the 11th Sephiroth. Just a lot of stuff. So we were talking about that, and she had a 2-foot ruler, and she was on the floor drawing something, and she started interrupting me, getting mad, and I was like, what is wrong with you? And she's like, I don't know. And then she picked up the ruler and looked at it. She's like, oh my God. And it had 2 11s printed on it, one in the correct spot and one where the number 23 is. And the number 23 is also associated with this type of coincidence by people like Robert Anton Wilson and some older occult writers. So it, kind of a little bit of a double whammy there. And the thing about it is that those rulers are made in a, like a mold? So it's not like it was like a misprint or something. That's not how this works. It would imply that all of that type of ruler, like somebody made the mold wrong or something. It's just like trying to understand how that actually physically came to pass and ended up in our possession right at that moment. That was the first experience of this type that really just hit me like, man, there is something seriously weird going on here. And so I think, a few weeks after that, we got this random email from Golden Light Eagle, who is a Sioux Sundance chief, inviting us to this meeting of Native American and other like spiritual leaders from all over the planet in Farmington, New Mexico. And one of the themes was 1111 and all of this sort of energy that comes along with it. So when I'm talking about the conceptual continuity of these kind of experiences and the symmetry across time with it, and how there's sort of a story or like breadcrumbs, the thing of like following a trail of breadcrumbs. And of course it continued and continued and continued, and that's basically a lot of what my channel and my videos are about, especially the older ones. And like I said, it's continued up to this day. In fact, up until yesterday. I really hope that was helpful for you guys. I do have to go because I have to get us going to the ceremony. By the way, we're still booking ceremonies. I think we are considering doing them in a Yampe and in the Amazon, because Yampe is amazing. There's like islands you can take boats to for not expensive on your days off. You can learn to surf. The jungle, it's not the Amazon, but it's a different jungle that comes right to the ocean. There are parrotlets. There are semi-precious gemstones like all over the beach. Agates, red, blue, purple, black. So like when we went surfing on acid the other day, we're walking around, like just walking on gemstones, and you know what I mean? The water is like a little bit warmer than the air, so it's totally comfortable. There are no sharks. There's never been a shark bite off the coast of Ecuador. So it's a great place to learn to surf and be totally free of fear. So much amazing stuff to do here. So if you are interested in that, shoot me an email. Also, don't forget that I do consultations of all sorts, and it's been really rewarding for me. I really enjoy doing that, and my feedback is that I'm very effective at helping people in that way. And there's a lot of different contexts that I do that in. Yeah, thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have the best audio or video until I get home back to the jungle because of a cord that I left. But I'll try to jump on again in the next couple of days, and see you all again.